Now let's continue our conversation here in the studios. It's the time where we bring our in-house analysts to break them into tiny bits. And Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, he Deputy Dean of the Postgraduate School at Bayes University in Abuja, is here with me. Good to see you and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Suleiman. Good to see you too.
Yes, listening to Aisha and the governor of Kaduna State, Ubasani, one of the key things people fear first is about trust. And we're getting to still see that trust deficit, even amongst the governors. The governors don't trust the register, even though World Bank has giving credit to Nigeria for that register. So what more do we expect? We need a compendium of names first to say these are the recipients.
Yeah, but I think the fundamental thing is what you have actually highlighted, the question of confidence, the question of trust. You know, how do we make the process, the register, for instance, how do we establish or generate enhance accountability and transparency from it? That's what we're seeing happening. You know, the governors to some extent are suspicious of the previous one, even though they are not necessarily dismissive of it, like the Cardinal governor said, that they are just concerned about updating it, enhancing it, making it work better. And that will happen, you know, if they are brought in to participate in the mining of the data, as the case could be. So it's understandable when a new era, when a new administration, and the atmosphere is new. So if they want to bring their own idea, their own, you know, ingenuity, creativity into implementing it, I don't think it's actually bad. But again, it comes back to the question of engendering confidence. That's also very, very important. And of course, it also links with the overall question of decline in value system, you know, which was highlighted in the question you raised with the lady, you know, about how do you trust somebody who is taking cash to go and give to the local who is probably on the farm, who is probably illiterate, who is probably not used to cash. They can survive most of the time without necessarily seeing cash. Most of these people, because they are, what do you call it, subsistence people, farmers, and all of that. So you want to begin to doubt, you know, the implementation of that conditional cash transfer. And that's what you see happening really with the previous administration, with the trillions spent on that social investment scheme, as the case could be, or whatever it's called. You know, people still doubt that that policy was genuinely implemented, and it's all dovetailed into the question of engendering trust, or the absence of it, the deficit of trust, of confidence between the leaders and the led, which is something that we can work on if we don't just stop at policy formulation, or rather, if we don't just stop at agenda setting, policy formulation, decision making, then of course, if we also go beyond policy formulation to implementation and evaluation, the problem we'll always have is that we stop at the level of formulation. Implementation is often weak. Then of course, evaluation does not even come into the fray at all, whereas it is integral to the process of policy making.
And specifically, or rather categorically, Governor Sani said, well, he's against cash transfer. He specifically called it a fraud.
I think it's a very reasonable conclusion to draw, and of course that's what you hinted to when you were discussing with that with the lady. I mean, it's just very easy. Even if you are sincere, even if you no matter how godly you are, people want to doubt you because temptation will be high. And that's why we have the banking system, really. I mean, that process, you know, accountability can be established. You know, there can be proper evaluation. You can check and double check. And of course, you can see the trail. But when you say, you come to tell me that you just gave somebody money, I mean, I'm not a mind reader. I'm not, I mean, how will I know? What evidence do you want to? It doesn't matter how immaculate you tend to be, there will still be that element of doubt, you know. And we're in the 21st century. It's a century of technology, where a century where so many things can be made much more arithmetical, you know, much more mathematical. And if you are still dwelling in primitivism, by thinking that you can implement government policy through handouts, you know, through handing out cash, is just unbelievable, and it doesn't look good, really. And it's okay if the present administration want to move away from it and the implementation of this palliative.
And you know, once upon a time, we saw governors in this state say there was no need for us to save up, let's share the money. But for the first time in the history of Nigeria, we're seeing the governors all come together. Out of 1.9 trillion revenue for July, they kept aside some and only disbursed 900 billion. It then means that we have some money to work with.
Yeah, you see, the times are changing. You know, you take decisions based on times, based on circumstances. Sometimes we're a function of the environment, we're a function, our activity, our action is a function of time and space. You know, those two determine the kind of action we take, and that's what we're seeing happening now. So if we want to be much more prudent, you know, much more careful with expenditure, I think it's a welcome development. And in practical terms, do not forget, our debt burden is rising, and of course we're struggling with income. And the population is also increasing. Insecurity is still around us. You know, all these things are inimical to economic activities. And of course, if there's no economic activity, how do you trigger production, which is also a problem we thought. And if there's no production, how do you bring about full employment? You know, how do you trigger the multipliers? You know, and if all these things are absent, then of course you should know that the future may not be too pleasant, and you do not have to eat up the future by eating up everything you have. So it is reasonable at different levels for us to cultivate the habit of saving. So if the governors are thinking in that direction, it's a welcome one. And of course, it's just a lesson for us that nothing is permanent.
And quickly here, since the removal of petrol subsidy, it has activated quite a lot, bringing untold hardship to the people. Yeah. And speed here is of essence. I asked Governor Sani how much of a waiting will Nigerians be, made to for them to go through the register, because he's spoken about a review. So let us in on what should be an objective and a reasonable wait period before something is done.
I think we don't have the time, because the hardship is biting, and everybody, as long as you're a citizen of this country, you must be feeling it. I don't even see, even if you're high up there, you must feel it one way or the other, because you have those at the lower rung of the economy like that working around you. You have drivers, you have cooks, you have security people, and of course maybe the level at which they make demands on you has increased. Then of course you know that something is amiss. So everyone is feeling it, and I think the leaders should even be feeling it more, and it seems obvious. That's why they're having a spate of meetings, you know, trying to find ways of mitigating it. So we are all nobody's hardly able to sleep, which is to tell us that, we should just continue to make the hastes. And that's the best thing to do in this circumstance, and find maybe, if not a lasting solution, maybe a temporary solution to the pain that we're all in. Suleiman.
Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, many thanks for your time.